Welcome back to Grounded, home of mindfulness, meditation, and self-exploration. Today I'm talking a little bit on how to shift your realities. Shifting reality into a place of peace, contentment, fulfillment. Now, what is the common ground that we all share between us? That common ground can be summed up in one word. That word would be happiness. But happiness is not one thing. It's a component of things. Or is made up by a component of things. Those things we could call contentment, fulfillment, connection, abundance, love, freedom. I think it'd be safe to say that happiness is all of these components together. So happiness is something that you can realize within. You can glimpse into the nature of it. If you couldn't glimpse into the nature of it, then there'd be no yearning for it. There'd be no seeking a desire for it. If it wasn't what was most natural to you, you wouldn't desire it. And because you can desire it, that means you can obtain it. But the question is, why isn't it constant? Why isn't happiness, contentment, fulfillment a constant in your life? And the reason for that is one simple word, but that word points to a devastating state within, reflected as a devastating state external. That word being war, because most of us are all fighting an internal war. An internal war in which we don't have the full clarity of, don't truly understand. But I'm about to bring some light to give a perspective. So this internal war can be summed up in one word. That word is resistance. And what you resist the most, more than anything else, is yourself. You resist yourself because yourself is painful. Resistance is the indication to pain. So we have this internal war going on within us. That internal war is the resistance to feel ourselves. The resistance to feel and acknowledge our own emotions. We have cut off and disconnected from the ability of feeling. and instead we project into a future. Contentment becomes a thing of the future. Happiness becomes a thing of the future. It's an unconscious way in which you resist yourself further. Now, what is this resistance? This resistance that you feel. You might not be aware of the resistance, but you're definitely aware of the emotional eruption that happens within you whenever the pain within you is touched upon. I describe it as a kettle being on a permanent boil as we suppress, as we disconnect the kettle like a constant boil, and then when touched, an eruption of energy, an eruption of emotion, almost like the kettle letting the steam off as we project, reject, blame others for what's arising within us. So as we let off steam, we let off the emotion, we expel it outwards, bypassing having to acknowledge it once again as we blame the situation. But the key to shifting realities, the key to transforming yourself, the key to understanding everything that you could possibly ever wish to understand, is first by acknowledging your own resistance. And how do we acknowledge our own resistance? How do we acknowledge the parts of ourselves that we resist? Well, our reality is a complete mirror to every single part of our being. So we don't need to work ourselves out. We just need to be aware of the resistance that we have towards people, objects, places, things, ideas, concepts that we have in our reality. So whatever you are resisting now in your reality are the parts that you are resisting in yourself. So when you begin to feel resistance towards something in your reality, you are feeling the resistance towards a part of yourself. By acknowledging your resistance, by taking the focus away from the external object and becoming aware of the resistance internally towards that object, we can begin to understand what we're resisting. And the first thing that you come across in your resistance is the emotion. By changing the focus, we are aligning to what is going on within. When we keep the object the focus, we are still bypassing, expressing. When we shift that focus to the resistance itself, it reveals feelings. And as we learn to be with these feelings, by allowing the feelings to be there. You begin to become aware of the story associated with the feelings, but more so, you begin to become conscious of the beliefs and the traumas associated with the feelings. And by understanding the feelings, by acknowledging them, by feeling into them, you can begin to understand them. And as you begin to understand them and feel them, you begin to connect back with that energy that you have cut off from the painful, hurt parts of you. And you begin to allow these feelings to consciously flow, to be consciously acknowledged. And so as you work with your resistance, you begin to feel more. You begin to acknowledge yourself more. You begin to allow yourself to heal. You begin to allow yourself to flow, to connect. And as these suppressed feelings begin to diminish, you're no longer moved by your reality, disturbed less internally. You're becoming more whole. You're becoming more complete. You're becoming more natural. It's not about changing your resistance. It's about first acknowledging that you are in a state of resistance and turning your focus away from the object to the emotion itself. And this is how you begin to shift realities. Because you're shifting, you're making the dark in you light. You are making the hurt to love, the wounds to healing. And as that happens, you become more whole and united within. You become more harmonious. And the world, over time, catches up, reflects back that new state. And you have shifted from resistance, separation, to love, connection. Happiness is not something you find, it's not something you achieve. It's something you realize when you realize and acknowledge yourself more fully, more wholly, more loving, more connected, more expanded from the lessons of the hurt from which you once used to carry. Till next one, much love.